All right, so we got my chat over here. Stick it over there. All right, so I got my chat up so I can see it. Let's wait until some people join a little bit. All right, hey Julia. Okay, so how is everyone's day going? It's going to be hot again this week. I noticed we had a really nice cool week last week, but now it's going to be hot. So we have a busy week coming up. I start back with lessons next week. This week we are going to a church planners conference. Hello, Mina Louise. We're going to a church planners conference Thursday and Friday. So we'll be busy doing that. That'll be interesting. I'm all about church planning because obviously we planted our church almost 11 years ago. So I like going to things like this, but it just makes for a really busy week. And then school starts up in a few weeks. So I think Miss Chinello agreed to be on August 22nd, I believe is the date that we agreed on. So the end of the month anyways, look for that back to school special. She has a lot of really neat ideas with different things that she does with her own kids that I'm actually going to start incorporating this year as well. She has a morning basket that she does. That's a really neat idea. So look forward for that. So hey, Amber. Oh, good. Amber, you're not quite to the age of preteen and teen, but it's not too far away. I was just in your shoes not too long ago, and now here I am. I am smack dab in the middle of my 4th child being a teenager, and then my 5th child, Allie, will be a teenager next year. So like 9 months away or something. So she is right in the preteen. She's 12. She's right in the preteen. Of course, I have, for those of you that knew, I'm getting a lot of new ladies that have been coming on. So I have a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. So those are the ages of my children. So I have definitely, you know, I can say just tips and things to help, things that I've learned throughout the ages of raising teenagers, but it all comes down to trial and error when you finally are raising your teenagers. So, hey, Amanda. So yeah, there's nothing like just raising them, but I definitely can try to help because let's admit it, the teen years can sometimes be rough. But like for me personally, I actually prefer the teen years over toddlers. That's just me. I've had a lot of joy with my teens throughout the years. I mean, toddlers too, they're adorable, right? But I'm constantly putting out fires with my toddlers. Now, I will say toddlers have small problems that you can fix very easily. Teenagers have bigger problems that require more time, and sometimes you can't fix them. And what I mean by that is the first heartbreak, maybe they get in a car accident, job issues. There's things that are hard as a mom to watch your kids go through. But for me overall, I have really enjoyed the teen years. Don't throw things at me, don't throw rotten tomatoes at me, but I have really enjoyed the teen years. And I feel like most people in our church enjoy my teenagers as well. So I think they're a huge blessing. I think if you train them to work hard, then they will bring you so much joy as they get older. You can reason with teens and argue your case. You can't very well with toddlers. Now, Kelly is super smart. She's my 3.5-year-old, and it takes a lot of time. Hey, Beth, it takes a lot of time to just sit down with her, explain what's going on, explain why I have a problem. And she seems to understand it for the most part, but she is a little bit more difficult sometimes than my teenagers. I believe that often the fruit of your training comes through in those teen years. It comes out during those teen years. Do your teens believe what you believe because they've been forced to, or is it in their hearts? Obviously, every teen will be different. Some are a bit more dramatic. Some are harder to reason with. Some are more sassy. Some are more easygoing. In the end, your teen needs your love and acceptance more than ever in this stage of life. Gone is the control aspect, telling them you have to do because I tell you to, especially once they hit that good old American ripe age of 18, Legally, they're able to move out and do whatever they want, and you have no more control over them. So gone are the days of control. And it's more about influence. And if they continue on, they really believe it, and it's a heart issue, for them. It's gotten in their heart. Those seeds that you've planted there have grown, and they've taken over, and it's now their conviction. I'll be reading something in a book that I was just reading. This was a pretty good book called Passing Judgment, Praise and Blame in Everyday Life. And obviously it's a secular book. It's written by a secular author, but it really just kind of goes over how necessary both judgment, praise, and blame are in our lives. So this is an interesting book, but let's talk about the years right before the teen years and how to prepare them for the upcoming years. Because I had two boys right at the top. I will put out a disclaimer. I actually think boys are a little easier to raise than girls so far. Boys are a little bit crazier, and they give me a heart attack sometimes, but I do feel like there's more logic involved, whereas girls often have a lot of the hormonal things going on. Emotions take over logic most often. But I will also say that my girls are a huge help to me around the house. So even though you're dealing with a little bit more drama and emotions that you have to navigate sometimes and really get to the heart of the issue, they do help out so much. So like I said, I've enjoyed my teenagers. I really like that age. I just do. But let's talk about ages 11 to 12. Just remember when they get to 11, 12, and sometimes it's earlier in America today with all of the hormones in our food and all the growth hormones and different things like that. Girls are starting their cycles earlier and earlier and earlier. I've heard of girls as young as 8, as young as 7. Thankfully, that has not happened with my girls. They tend to be later 13, 12 or 13, usually before that happens. And so they're going through all of these different changes. The boys are starting to go through puberty. Their body is changing. Their hormones are just crashing all over the place. And it can be pretty frightening for them because they don't feel like themselves anymore. They know that something's going on. They're not quite sure what, and their brain is not capable of figuring it out at this stage. In fact, and there was something in this book about it. I might touch on it in a little bit, but scientists have actually done studies of 7th grade up through that age, like 11, 12, up to even like in their early 20s, the brain is still developing at a very quick speed. Yeah, the brain is still developing at a very quick speed. So it can't keep up with all the changes that are going on. So it could be frightening. With girls and boys, this could be different. Some boys take longer to go through puberty. It takes them longer to grow body hair. It takes them longer to develop more. And sometimes girls go through it earlier. So just depending on if you have a girl or a boy, just be aware that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. They've actually studied brain matter, and sometimes it's like they literally declare that age group, especially among boys, brain dead. And my husband often, hello, Morgan and Bryn. My husband often talks about when he was a Christian school teacher, he wanted to just knock the 7th graders boys' heads up against the wall. Like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with you? Are you brain dead? Are you not computing anything I'm saying? We'll come to find out he read a book about teenage boys or pre-teen boys, and it actually said that they are kind of brain dead at that age. There's actual literal gray matter in their brain, and their brain is just developing so quickly that it's like they're in a stupor sometimes. They'll just kind of walk around like zombies. And that's just a transitional stage that they had to go to. And that really helped him when our boys went through it. He really understood it a lot better since he had seen so many kids at the church go through it. So I definitely think at this age, the sassiness peaks. It has with my kids. Usually from about age 12 to 15 is when they question the most. What I found personally, like I said, it could be totally different. Maybe you have one of those children that has learned never to question and they don't sass, But there is a positive side to sassiness, as much as it gets aggravating at times. It really enables you as the parent to explain why you do things the way you do and why we believe the way that we do. And at the end of the day, it does come down to, because mom and dad said so and you're only 12 and you have to listen to me, but this is why we do it. And you explain it. Kids are starting to realize at this age that everything isn't as black and white anymore. There are variables in things, and they're learning how to make their own judgment calls when it comes to things. They are becoming uniquely them. They are developing their own personality. And I think at this age, 12 is a very pivotal age. It stands out in my mind because I have a lot of memories of my spunky self, of just really at this age kind of coming out of my shell as far as learning to speak up about things. I've never liked bullies. And even from a young age, I stood against bullies. Even from the time I was 5 or 6, I was standing up against bullies. I've always had a sense of justice and wanting to right wrongs. And that really started coming out at this age. In fact, if anyone wants to know what I was like as a child, look at Allison, my daughter. If anyone wants to know what I was like, look at Allie. And I was talking to her about it this past Sunday because she was with me in the car. And this is one of the most foundational things to raising preteens and raising teenagers. You have to talk a lot. You have to communicate a lot. I feel like I'm constantly talking all the time, all day long, all the time. But Allie went with me to church, and I was telling her, I said, I heard some stories about how you were at camp and how you kind of like to take charge of things. Hi, Rita. And how you liked to kind of take a leadership role. Even with all the girls, she kind of took the lead. And I told her, I said, you can really, God can use that in your life, because you can use that if you determine to serve God for the rest of your life, and you determine that no one's going to get in your way, then that spunky personality is going to carry you through. And it's really going to help you serve the Lord. And it's really going to, going to hide the troll. If I have, Amanda, can you kind of watch and see if there's any trolls on here, and then just nix them as soon as you can. But I told her, and she's like, I could tell that she was really listening and she was really thinking. And I told her, I said, you mainly have 2 things that you need to do with that spunky personality that God gave you. Number 1, she's very competitive, but it makes her work towards things. So that can be a good thing. I said, but number 1, you need to use that will and that tenacity, and you need to determine that you're going to, number 1, serve God, and number 2, love your neighbor. I said, if you do those 2 things, if you love God, all the commandments are going to fall into place. You're going to want to follow his commandments because you love him. I said, number 2, if you love your neighbor, then you are going to put others first. You're going to help them out. Everything will fall in place if you do those things. Hi, Ashley. So definitely the line of communication, and you'll be surprised at how they'll really soak it up and listen. Use personal examples in your own life of things that happened when you were a kid, and ways that you stood up for the Lord, and try to get that in their heart. They still have to listen to mom and dad at this age, but so many things are changing for them. So I know it can be a scary time. Think back to when you were 12. I mean, I read my journal from back when I was a teenager sometimes, and it's so cringeworthy. It's cringeworthy. Everything is huge in your life. When you're living at home, you don't have a lot of responsibility yet. And you basically, your only thing that you are supposed to do at that time is honor your mom and dad, listen to them, go to church, do all that. Then you have a lot of time to think and a lot of time to ponder things, and everything's dramatic. So just think back to the time when you were that age and try to show a little bit of grace. It is a scary time for them. Someone asked, what are some good ways to have the talk when it comes to, everything that's happening, the birds and the bees, we'll put it that way. And for me, there's always just been an open line of communication. I let information build upon each other. So I'll start out very generic. Your body's going through a lot of changes right now, and some things are going to happen. And then upon that, I'll build, what are they going through exactly? And then that'll build into more. As far as the nitty-gritty details, I haven't, and I won't tell my girls that until they're getting ready to get married. I don't really want them to put that in their mind, have them thinking about it, have them dwelling upon it. So it's just age-related information that I feel that they can handle. And my kids have always known that anything that's going on with them, with their body, in their life, they can come to me and talk. Now, I think one thing that I've tried to do with my girls is maybe have a special day out when that time actually comes. Maybe you want to have a more formal discussion. You can take her out to brunch, you can take her thrift store shopping, Kohl's, whatever, and then, talk about it in the van. You could talk about it when you go out to eat, if you're in a quiet, private place. There's something that there are things that you can do to make it more special, make it more memorable in her mind, rather than just throwing a book at her or saying, talk to your friends or, something. I would rather have my kids get their information from me than a friend or a book or anything like that. So I've tried to keep the lines of communication very open from the time they're about 10, 11, 12. I start giving them little bits of information that are age appropriate, and they start building upon each other. And then when the time comes for marriage, then I will divulge more. But I don't think we need to just unload the whole truck. I know that's what the public schools are doing. I don't think it is a good method to do. And Lavoya, are you asking a question, or are you just I'll reference that in a minute, but just keep the open communication is the biggest thing. And like I said, the public school has the method of teaching them from the time they're young, but I think that takes away a lot of their innocence. And I don't want to do anything with my kids to take away that innocence. I want them to be innocent as long as possible in this corrupt world that we're living in. So that goes with my boys, that goes with my girls. They don't need to know. I mean, my boys are men now, and obviously they work a man's job. So they're going to pick up on things, obviously. But along with that, with my boys, I have instilled from the time that they were very young that they need to protect their purity and their innocence, and they need to be very careful of what they look at online, what shows they watch, looking things up online. Don't even do it one time, because it only takes once, and then you're addicted to things. And there's so many men that are addicted to these awful things. So I know with boys, it takes a different turn as they grow up. Especially as they get a phone. Both my boys didn't really get a phone until they were 16 and driving. But as they get phones and they start going online more and they have access to the internet, then you need to really instill in their hearts that you need to keep your heart pure. And even if no one else in this world sees what you're looking at, Jesus sees what you're looking at, God sees what you're looking at, and it's going to warp you. And I use people like Josh Duggar as an example. I use bad examples in life of people that have gone down that path, and I show the damage that it's done to them. So I tell them it will affect your life now. It will affect your married life eventually. It'll affect your entire life if you start down this path. So you need to be very careful what you put in front of your eyes and the things that you look at. Keep your purity, keep your innocence. So I've tried to instill that in my boys. Now, girls, obviously, too, you do need to touch on that. I just know it's a bigger temptation for boys or men over that of women. Now, women are getting caught up in it today as well. But overall, I think it's more of a temptation with men. So that's something that you could also instill in their lives from the time that they're young. And then talk about everything happening. Don't shut them out. If there's a concern, no matter how small it may seem to you, put your phone down, look at them in their eyes, and really pay attention to what they're telling you. Really pay attention to what they're trying to say. Now, I will say, having multiples, you are constantly on call. Our house is just, when my husband got home tonight, it was like everyone was talking at once. The babies were like, Daddy, and like running and hugging him and climbing all over him, and the boys were talking to him, and I was talking to him, and the girls were talking to him, and it was just chaos. But it was a good chaos. I liked it. I really liked it because it was just joyful chaos. That would be a cute blog name, Joyful Chaos. It just came to me. So I like the chaos in my house, but when you have multiples, I'm constantly putting out fires. So I'm dealing with fires with the little ones, and then some of my big ones might come in with a problem that needs to be addressed. So I need to stop. I need to finish up what I'm doing with the little ones, and then maybe pass them on to their sisters to watch while I deal with this. So yeah, it can be pretty overwhelming sometimes, but you can do it because you're the best one for them to talk to. You, mama, you're the best one. God put you in their life. God gave you to them. You're the one that knows their heart. You're the one that knows their personality the best. So, but now let's talk about teenagers. So realize that when they become teenagers, they're really starting to spread their wings. So this is something that is always a balance. You don't want to be super controlling and never allow them room to make mistakes. Or I think a lot of times we have this idea that if our teen messes up, it's going to be a reflection of us. And, you know, so we have to make sure that doesn't happen. So we have to keep them under lock and key, and they can never drive anywhere. They can never go anywhere. We have to be, just super controlling and just keep them under our thumb. Well, that's not healthy. That's not a healthy environment. And that's not allowing them to learn and grow and learn from their mistakes. So try not to be super controlling. I've seen a lot of parents that are incredibly controlling, and it's never worked out to their advantage. Usually they end up just leaving the house as soon as they turn 18, because their parents are so controlling. So that's okay, Beth. I wondered why you deleted comments sometimes. That's fine. Okay. So allow them to mess up. That's part of having teenagers. Allow them to mess up. Now, I don't actually have a ton of points tonight, so I might get done at a shorter time. So if you have questions that I have not covered, then just go ahead and leave them in the chat. Okay, so Lavoya, let me look at your comments here. Okay. I'm sorry about that. This kind of comes with balance, teaching our kids to kind of stand on their own feet, but then you can see that they're getting hurt by someone, and that really hurts our mama heart, and that's tough, right? So the thing is, we can't force anyone to be friends with our kids. Now, if your pastor's daughter wants her to sit with her, so I don't understand why your daughter can't sit with them. I don't know why the deacon's daughter says that she's in charge of who your daughter sits by. So that's kind of a situation where maybe you could encourage the girls to work it out amongst themselves. I try not to be a helicopter parent. I don't want to micromanage every single situation that comes up with my kids and their friends, because they're with each other all day at church on Sunday. There's going to be, disagreements that happen and squabbles that happen, and it just comes with life. And I always encourage them to try to just work it out amongst themselves without parents having to get involved. I think that's the healthiest thing. And it also shows them how to work through things as they grow up and become adults. So maybe you could encourage them to try to work things out and get along. So, hey, Bethany. Amber said, how do you encourage your teenagers in their walk with the Lord? Do you make them read their Bible every day, or do you leave it up to them to do it? I personally leave it up to them to do it unless we're on a school schedule. A lot of times I'm so good when I get into my school routine. And if I, like when I first started out, especially, I was so good. And then as the year goes on, it gets worse and worse. But I like to start out with breakfast and then reading their Bibles 15, 20 minutes before school starts. And so my school age children, yes, I do want them to read their Bibles for 15, 20 minutes before school starts every day. My older teenagers, no, I do not. because I want it to be their own personal desire to follow the Lord. I want to see them pick up on it themselves. And I'm telling you, nothing brings me more pleasure as a mom than seeing my kids read their Bibles, seeing my kids do devotional, seeing my kids do it on their own without me telling them. Because even after they're out of my house, it's going to have to be their own decision. It's going to have to be their desire to have a relationship with the Lord. And I believe reading your Bible is part of your relationship with the Lord. And that's going to strengthen your relationship with the Lord. So I have not forced that, with the exception of a lot, most mornings I try to have them do Bible reading for school. And I think that's a good policy. It kind of gets everyone quiet right before we start school and kind of gets their mind in the thinking mode. So that's kind of my thing that I do. Yes, Leslie, I think camp and youth conferences played a huge part in shaping me as I grew up. It is one of the things that kept me on the straight and narrow as far as my purity, as far as my walk with the Lord. It really helped shape a lot of my ideals and convictions and beliefs that I got when I was a teenager from decisions I made at those places, and they stayed throughout the years. And most of it brought me to where I am now, being a pastor's wife and a mom of many and a homeschooling mom. And, I'm pushing purity. I love the purity culture. I think it's very good, even though people are trying to trash it. So I do think one of my favorite pastors growing up was Pastor Terry Angel. And he would always preach a sermon called something, Amber, you might remember it. Life is tied in knots or something, but it's not knots like K-N-O-T-S, it's N-O-T-S. And he was talking about how you need to have knots in your life. I will not do this. I will not do that. I will not be this way, whatever. So that was very instrumental in my life and some of the teens' life that we brought to teen camp when he preached that. So what can we do despite our efforts to raise them if it becomes apparent that one of our teens or older children is unsaved, not a believer, and is choosing the world over the Lord? Happiness is tied in knots. That's it, Amber. I'm sorry, Beth. I have not been here yet. Right now, I would say you just keep being an example, because at this point in your life, it's going to be more tied in your influence rather than your control. So you keep doing what you know is right. You keep praying for them. I think prayer is underrated. I definitely think that prayer works miracles. I know an evangelist wife who their son was prodigal for years, and they just prayed and loved on him and prayed and loved on him. Obviously, keeping the bad influences away from their younger children. You have children at home, but just prayed for him, bathed them in prayer, and he did end up coming back to the Lord. So, yeah, that's the advice I would give, not ever going through that. So I definitely would try to find a godly woman that has gone through that, maybe, and pick her brain about it. I need to find somebody to come on the show. I know I keep saying that, but I just haven't had any luck yet. So, yes, Amber, I agree that it's such a good sermon. It was one of the sermons that really shaped and molded me. It made a huge impact on me. Happiness is tied in knots. I'm sorry for your daughter, Lavoya. I don't really know how to say her name. I'm sorry. I'm trying to just say it the way I would imagine it. But yeah, that might just be one of the things. I know it hurts our mama's heart sometimes when we see our kids going through things and being snubbed. And the sad part is that that's going to happen all through life. Friendships are going to be tough. People are going to be mean, and you can't fight every battle for her. And as tough as it is, our kids are going to be hurt, and we really can't go to war for every little thing that happens with them. So it's just one of those learning things. But yeah, allow your kids to mess up. I wanted to mention something out of this book that it really kind of shows you a glimpse into a teenager's mind when it comes to parents passing judgment or lack of praise or whatever it may be. She said, teens are quick to judge others heatedly and passionately, and they're slow to return to a calm, reflective baseline. Arguments consisting of blame and counterblame are an exhausting but inevitable feature of the teen-parent relationship. You know, if you try to point something out that they're doing, but you do this, you know, they know all our flaws at this age. They live with us all the time. They know our flaws. They know our, you know, weaknesses. And Leslie, that's awesome. I'm so glad. That's another thing. A lot of kids get saved at church camps. So I'm glad for that. But cool decision-making, calm observation, self-control, and forward planning do not come easily to teens. And there are psychological reasons for this. While teens' heated arguments are often attributed to hormones, it is actually the teenage brain that is the culprit. And this is what I was talking about earlier. The teenage brain is a rapidly growing organ capable of abstract thinking and sophisticated reasoning, and as an intellectual powerhouse, it equals the adult brain. The teen's social brain, though, how it perceives and responds to others, is far from mature. The human brain was once thought to reach maturity at puberty, but recent imaging techniques reveal two important ways in which the teenage brain is very different from an adult brain. The wiring changes taking place in the teen brain mean that it has to work harder than either a young child's brain or an adult's brain to process social information. Mindsight, the inferences we make about other people's intentions, emotions, and judgments, is during the teenage years biased towards heated and negative interpretations. A facial expression that an adult would interpret as uncertainty or fear, a teen is likely to interpret as anger, a heated form of disapproval. So, for example, when this person's mother expressed anxiety about her daughter's clothes, the daughter interprets this as anger. In response, she becomes defensive and angry herself. In addition to teens' skewed interpretations of so many feelings parents express towards them, anxiety, doubt, fear, and uncertainty, are challenges presented by the teenage prefrontal cortex. The functions performed by this part of the brain include what are called the executive functions, such as impulse control, forward planning, and emotional regulation. With the brain's gray matter growing at a rapid rate, the gray matter I was talking about earlier, with new neural connections proliferating daily, the teen's brain can be seen as an unpruned thicket, dense and jammed. Not until the age of 24 years will the brain's wiring be pruned of the excess connections and run an efficient prefrontal cortex. For the time being, it functions like an overheated circuit board. In particular, the teen's prefrontal cortex is slow to send that all-important calming message to the amygdala. Shh, it's okay, you're not in real danger. That is why you'll notice if you're in an argument with a teen, it gets heated very quickly and it takes them a long time to cool down. Until this radical pruning takes place, which normally occurs in early adulthood, teens are quick to take offense to anything they perceive as blame. So that really opened my eyes. I'm like, oh, why didn't I read this sooner? That explains a lot. So and then she kind of goes over parental management and mismanagement of teens' judgment. You know, for many parents, a teen's condemnation is terrifying. Not only is it hurtful, as all blame is, but it threatens a parent's control and influence that generally is intended to protect a child. Okay, so rejecting a parent's judgment and blaming a parent for being judgmental call into question a parent's effectiveness and the most important investment he or she is ever likely to make raising a child. There are high stakes in being an effective parent. The message, your judgment is worthless, I am not influenced by your praise and blame, is tantamount to saying we have no real relationship. But, and this is the key, yet for all their bluster, teens value parents' responses. They challenge the family judgment system, seeking out its weak points, teenagers definitely do that, pushing patience and empathy beyond any reasonable limit because they want parents to register their transformation from the child the parent once knew so well, who was once dependent on parental approval, to the one who now seeks approval for her own emerging judgment meter. So they're coming to terms that they're growing up, they're becoming older, but they still desperately crave their parents' acceptance and their parents' praise. And I think this book is good for anyone to read that has a hard time maybe giving out praise in a non-controlling manner, because it goes over how some people will use praise as a way to control you or, coerce you into doing things, or, encourage you to do things. So they use it as a controlling mechanism, but it talks about the difference between real praise and the difference between manipulative praise. But I do think as human beings, we all crave righteous judgment to be passed on us, and we all crave praise, and we hate taking blame, but a truly balanced person will realize that sometimes there is need for them to take blame. Yes, I messed up. I did that. My bad. I'm going to really try not to do that again. Instead, because people fear blame so much, they shift blame. An immature person will react by just shifting blame on everyone else. Well, I did this, but you did this, which is worse. I'm this, but you just need to get over it. And if you can't get over it, it's your problem, not mine. That's they shift the blame to the other person. So a mature person realized, and a mature balanced person realized that we aren't perfect. We're going to mess up. We'll take the blame where needed. But then with your teenagers, you need to try to have that balance too. And just remember that sometimes things are really big deals to them that really aren't to you. You obviously have lived on the earth twice as long as they have. So you have a lot more wisdom when it comes to dealing with things, but just try to be gracious and patient with them. So right now in the teen's life, example is the best teacher. Like I said, they know your shortcomings. They know you mess up. They know your failings. They know you're not perfect. They know you're not superwoman. Because of all those things, when I get a compliment or a praise from one of my kids, I really take it to heart because I know they really mean it. And that's the thing with teens. They mean what they say, and they say what they mean. So, kids across the board are pretty much like that. But teenagers, especially, you don't have to wonder what they're thinking. They're going to let you know. So they see all your problems just like you see theirs, and be forgiving with them. They're going to have bad days just like you're going to have bad days. Just be forgiving, move on. Don't hold their mistakes over their head. Don't constantly bring up things that happened in the past and try to belittle them with it. Because once it's been dealt with, you should just move on. Every teen will be different and every situation will be different. And this is one of the biggest things I've found. Before I had kids, before I had teenagers, I thought it was just going to be one size fits all. We do it this way, perfect kids guaranteed. That doesn't counter in every single kid's different personality, their different wills, their different temperaments, their just the way they react to situations differently. Every kid is going to be different and every situation is going to be different. So we've kind of tried to tell that to our kids as they grow older. Even when it comes to the dating world, every kid's going to be different. You go off the maturity of the kid, you go not so much a set age, but you go off the maturity of the child. Some kids are going to be more mature than others. Some kids are going to take longer to get married than others because they need more time to mature. So it's not just a one size fits all mentality. Every kid is going to be different. I might let my boys do something that I'm not going to let my girls do something, because my boys are more able to take care of themselves being boys, and letting my girls do it might put them in harm's way. So I approach different situations differently with even my boys and my girls, and with different kids. I know how different kids are going to react to different situations. Maybe this kid would be okay in this situation. Maybe this kid would not be. So it's not like this set thing. We're going to do this, with every single one of you. So that is the biggest thing that I have come to realize raising teenagers. And I'm sure you can look back on like shows from 4 years ago, and maybe I said, we will always do it this way. And maybe that's when my oldest was 16. Now that my oldest is 20 and I've got several more after him, and we've, had more experience under our belt when it comes to this subject, we've changed a little bit. So it's okay to change and grow, and to just acknowledge that with your kids. Yeah. Okay. We said this, but we've learned more since then. So, it's okay to let your kids know that. Be careful, and this kind of goes along with my next point, be careful in declaring everything a sin, or keeping them from everything as you're raising them. saying like, my kid will never do this and my kid will never do that. My kid will never do that, because you might have to eat your words when you get older. So be careful going over the top with things, as when you have little kids, especially, I see a lot of parents doing this. My kid will never watch a Disney show. My kid will never go to a movie theater. My kid will never go to a trampoline park. You know, that's a crazy example, but I don't know. People are crazy sometimes. So be careful declaring set rules, because a lot of times, especially if you say it publicly, you feel like you're locked into that. And it's okay to be like, I was wrong back then. I was wrong saying that trampoline parks are all evil. They're really not. And it's okay for my kids to go to a trampoline park. You know, they're not sinning in doing so. It was probably wrong of me to declare to sin back then. So it's okay to do that too. Keep them in church. Keep your teenagers in church. You know, obviously start from the time they're little, instill a love in church for them. Let them know this is our standard. We're going to be in church. Rain or shine, the doors are open, we're in church. And that should hopefully be something that they take into their teen years. I mean, McMurtry's know that when the church doors are open, they're there, and it would be really weird to them if they were sitting at home and church was going on. That doesn't happen. So that's a very, very set standard in our home. One of my biggest, this whole discussion tonight could just be combined in talk to your teenagers. They're not a problem. They're at a very pivotal age, and if you want a close relationship with them as they enter into adulthood, as they start spreading their wings and they start flying on to new adventures, you want a close relationship with them. You want to be able to text them and talk to them and laugh with them and know their heart, know what's going on in their brain. You know, you want that with your kids. So you need to talk things out. Even if it's staying up till 11, 12 o'clock at night. I've had those nights. I've had those nights where I've been up late and I knew I had to get up at 6 in the morning with the baby, and it's horrible because I need my sleep. But raising good kids is more important than my sleep to me. Be sympathetic to their problems. Even though those problems may seem small to you, remember what it was like to be young and their age. All I need to do is go back and read my journal. And when I read my journal, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what it's like to be 16. That's what it's like to be 17. Yes, I did keep it, and it's up. It's up somewhere where, you know, I read in between the lines of Cassandra of 16, 17 years old. And there was a lot of pain because my dad died when I was 17. There's a lot of pain, and there was a lot of crying out to the Lord and just resting in him and being unsure of the future and what the future held. But I knew even as a teenager that all I could do was do what I knew I was supposed to do. Take one day at a time. All I could do was wake up and read my Bible and pray and obey my mom and go to church and stay pure and work on my relationship with Jesus. At that age, I knew that's all I could do. And so I did. And then that helped to develop, you know, practices that would take me into as an adult when I have to go through difficult things. So be sympathetic to their problems. You know, give your boys respect. Don't be condescending to them. They're growing up. I have three men that live in my house now. My husband and then 2 official men that live in my house. I try not to treat my boys like little boys. They're not my little boys anymore. They're grown men. So I do try to respect them and respect their, you know, their desires and, you know, their wishes, and not belittle them. I think moms can do a big disadvantage belittling, especially your boys. Your teens desperately want your love and affection. They always need you to be proud of them. It doesn't matter how old you are. My husband's 41, and my father-in-law will still call him. Like anytime my husband preaches and he mentions my father-in-law calls him. And last night he mentioned something about how it was really important to his dad to raise good kids. And so he tended to follow the people who raised good kids and really listen to their advice. And my husband said he was a recipient of that. And so he, sure enough, we got home and his dad calls him on the phone. He's like, I listened to your sermon. I knew he would. So his dad still listens to all his sermons. And anytime my husband mentions him, he calls him and told him that he listened to a sermon. He'll tell him a funny story or something. And, you know, so that's why he was calling. But I just thought it was sweet because I knew he would be. He would be calling because he listens. And my husband likes that. He likes knowing that his dad's proud of him. You know, I think we never outgrow the need for our parents' approval. So I remember even when my dad died, I have lived my life in a way that he would be proud of me. And maybe, you know, we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Maybe he can see a little bit. I don't know. We don't know what God allows them to see. Maybe he can see little glimpses or highlights of my life, you know. He can see another grandkid being born. He can see the church plant starting. He can see the 10-year anniversary. He can see the 11-year anniversary. He can see the soul I won to the Lord when he hears the angels rejoicing. I don't know. I don't know what they can see, but it's just a neat idea to think about and to try to live my life in a way. Obviously, first and foremost, God would be pleased with me, but also my earthly father. I want to live in a way that he would be proud of me as well. And I think he would be. He was really good at giving praise. That always held a really special place in my heart. He was great for that. He was really the type of dad that every girl needs, just always accepting, very, very lavish with the praise. I could tell he just really liked me. So, and that's what your teens need too. Be fiercely ready to fight for them, but let them learn to fight their own battles. And this was one of my points. So let them learn to fight their own battles. It's going to serve them well as they grow up, because there's going to be lots of battles that they face. We don't know what kind of battles our kids are going to face. Battles with the government, who knows? Battles with them trying to shut down churches. I don't know what kind of battles my kids are going to face. And so it's good for them to see me fight my own so that they can be better equipped at how to fight their own battles that come up. So thanks, Amanda. I hope so. I think he would be, just because even when I messed up and I was just bratty Cassandra, he still found good in that. So my dad could find good in anyone. He'd take the most rotten down, low down scoundrel, and he would probably find some good in him. He was a little too gracious with people, but that was just my dad. So thanks. I give a lot of credit to him. I really respected and admired him. He was, I always saw him reading his Bible, and he loved the Lord with his whole heart, and he tried his best to serve him. And he was just involved in church, and everyone loved him, and he was super friendly at work. He led many people to the Lord there. So he was a great example. He was a great example for me. So teach them how to live a balanced life, though. Only you can teach them this. Our kids do in excess what we do in moderation. So if you are over the top, your kids are going to be really over the top. I don't know what to tell you. If you're a bully, your kids are going to be a bully to the max. So if you're gracious with people, your kids are going to learn that and emulate that. If you are forgiving to people, they're going to emulate that. If you're harsh to people, they're going to learn to be harsh to people. Your kids are going to do in excess what you do in moderation. So just keep that in mind. Show them your love for Jesus. Like I was just talking about my dad. I think he was a great example for that, especially after he got sick. I've never seen him read the Bible more. He really drew close to God during he was actually diagnosed at my age at 41. He was diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease, and he died by 44. So he had about 3 years. During those 3 years, I saw him read his Bible all the time, and he worked all the way up until he died. So I saw him really draw close to the Lord and really lean on him. And I believe that when he took his last breath, angels were there to escort him into heaven. And he really taught me to strive for a personal relationship with the Lord. So what did he do that you knew he found good, even in bratty Cassie? He would say things like, I know you're grumpy, but you're still beautiful, or something like that. You know, I know you're not happy with me, but I'm still here for you. Even when I was being little snippy bratty Cassandra, he was like that. And he showed me that it didn't matter how I was acting. He always loved me. It didn't matter how I was acting. He still thought the best of me. So he just really had just unconditional love for me. And he let me know that, you know, and I've never forgotten that. So I wish my kids could have met him, but someday Someday they will. And we didn't even do a lot of video back then because we just had, you know, the old like video cameras. So we don't have really any video for them to watch either, which is really sad. So say what you want about our devices, but there's a lot of really good stuff on here that, you know, my kids can watch if I ever kick the bucket early. Even these videos, it's a legacy for my kids. So they could click a YouTube video, you know. So don't hide from the camera. That's another lesson. Don't hide from the camera. Please take pictures with your kids, record things for your kids, even if it's a silly little TikTok video. I hate TikTok. Reel. Let's do a reel. Facebook reel or Instagram. What is the Instagram reel? Is that what it's called? I don't know. But even if it's a silly little video like that, do it for your kids so that they'll have something to look at after you're gone. So I learned that from not having very much stuff with my dad in it. So, and then show them how to interact with people and teach your girls to stay classy. Classiness, and I've talked about it before, is missing in today's society. Teach them that they don't need to return venom for venom. Teach them that they can stay above the mire and muck of just grossness. Teach them that they never have to use the rough language of the world. Teach them that, you know, the Lord sees them as a princess, and because of that, they need to act like one, you know. And being a princess doesn't mean that you never get involved in the fray or the battle, but it does mean that you can fight with valor, and you can fight with wisdom, and you can fight with decency. You don't have to stoop to the baseless attacks of some. You can do that and stay above being nasty. So teach them to stay classy. And the most important thing, I think, for all of this is obviously the communication, but they need a present mom. They need you to be present. They need you to put your phone down when they have a problem and forget about your phone as you are dealing with the situation at hand. They desperately need you to listen to them. They desperately need to know that you're invested in them succeeding, that you are proud of them, that you are invested in them being a good human being, that you are invested in them loving Jesus and all that good stuff. So put the phone down, look at them when they're talking to you. And I think that's the biggest thing. You just need to be present. And for some, yes, exactly, Celine, always try to respond with grace. And Beth, I don't take enough selfies with my husband. He hates selfies. So I definitely need to take more, but we try to do family pictures and things like that. So, but yes, always try to respond with grace for sure. And you do that by your kids, your girls, seeing you do it by example. So, you know, just staying above the fray, responding with grace, you know, staying classy, learning to work through issues in the church, learning to work through issues with friends, you know, encouraging them to work through things, but not necessarily getting involved, you know, not going to the parents of someone who wronged your child, you know, really encouraging your children to work through it. I'm not talking about someone that puts your kid in harm's way. It's physically hurting your child. That needs to be dealt with. And I've told my girls that many times, if this happens, you need to come get me. I will get involved at this situation. So, but yeah, but I think that's about it. So there's a lot that goes into it. And like I said, every child is going to be different as a teen. And every teen is going to have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. And it's your job to really praise those strengths and tweak those weaknesses and try to encourage them to get better in those weaknesses. But they know all our strengths and all our weaknesses too. And they could tell anybody that asked. They know if you have a temper. They know if you're impatient. They know all the little secrets of how you really are. So just remember that when you're dealing with them, you know, you're not perfect. You're not, you know, you do things that you shouldn't sometimes. So have a little grace when they mess up and show them a little compassion and a little bit of grace when they mess up. So I think that's about it for this week. Thanks for joining, ladies. We had some new ladies in the chat. I'm excited to see you. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Go ahead and like it now. Go ahead and like it now. You can share with anyone that might need it, anyone that has teens or is coming up on teens. I would love to hear your advice with teens. I don't have it all figured out yet. Like I said, every teenager is different, and I still have 4 more to raise. So I'm certain by number 8, I will have learned a lot more. Oh, number 8, about 15, 16 years. So what can we do if they resist any correction? I think it would depend on what age they are. You know, obviously, if you've got a 21-year-old that's out all hours, they're resisting you, they're living in your home, they don't need to be living in your home if they're not going to listen to you. You know, I would definitely say, tell them it's time to get your own house, it's time to get your own place. But if they're adults and you're still trying to correct them, really at that stage, I think the best thing is to just bathe them in prayer and lift them up in prayer, and then, you know, try to influence them by your own life. Not so much correction or words coming out of your mouth, but by the way you're living. Let them see Jesus exemplified in your own life, and that might have more of an impact. That combined with prayer might have more of an impact than anything that you can say. So thank you, Rita. I hope you guys have a great week. I had a lot of good topics put in the Gently Led Sisters group on Facebook, so I'm going to try to go through them and do those topics. Thank you to Logan for suggesting this topic. I've had a lot of people ask me to do one specifically on the talk, but there's not really much involved, so I kind of turned it into a preteen teen one. Because for me, when it comes to the talk, it's not like this monumental day where angels are singing, and it's something I gradually build up to. I start when they're young by, like I said, releasing age appropriate information. And then as I keep that open line of communication, it's been pretty easy to go into all of that. And then when they actually start having the cycle, then I add on more information and tell them exactly why. And this is the way God made you, and it's a perfect design, and God made boys this way and God made girls this way. And so it's just basically keeping that open line of communication. Just turned 18. Yes. Now at 18, they do have to realize that they're still under your authority, living in the home. If they're still living in the home. So, you know, you can give them options. Say, you know, you're not listening to me, and I can't allow this to go on in my home. So either you decide that you're going to listen to me and obey my rules, or you're going to have to, you know, find a place somewhere else to live. And that's really tough. I know. Only you as the parent can make that decision. And it's how much are you willing to deal with? Are you willing to, what are you comfortable with? If they're doing things that you're not comfortable with going on in your home, well, it's your home ultimately. And, you know, once they turn that magic age, there's not much we can do legally. I know there's nothing. They might just have to go through the school of hard knocks, unfortunately. So I'm sorry if you're going through that, and I will definitely be praying. Let's lift each other up in prayer this week. We all need it. There's all battles that everyone's facing that you might not even know about. So be kind to someone today, and maybe you can help alleviate their burden just a little bit. So I hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next week.